Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Forster with the American Academy of Sciences and Letters, and I have with me today William Howell, who is the Dean of the School of Government and Policy at Johns Hopkins University. William, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, Greg, it's delightful to be with you.
William, how would you describe the mission of the university and why does it matter?
So this is a difficult question because universities serve lots of missions. Clark Kerr famously referred to universities as best thought of as multiversities. They have sports programs with reason. When you think about the health and well-being of its community members, they have health services, mental health services. They have um, classes that are meant to provide hard skills, but also to open up the imagination of students, all sorts of things. When it comes, though, to the research that's conducted at universities, here's where I want to put down my money on one thing, which is that universities are in the business. They should be in the business. They have, from their founding, professed to be in the business of advancing truth and pursuing and building knowledge. And you might think that that's rather anodyne and obvious, but it's not, because regularly in the conduct of research and in the teaching of classes, other imperatives begin to weigh on faculty and students, which have to do with advancing an agenda of one sort or another, about attending to one injustice or another, about reconstituting a social order of one sort or another, an effort to use research in the service of not the pursuit of truth, whatever that might be, or the building of knowledge, wherever that might take you, but instead to try to attend to all kinds of very urgent and troubling facts about the world, of which there are plenty. And so holding steadfast to that commitment to truth seeking and knowledge building is a real challenge, but it's in my view what the basic compact is between members of a university and the publics that that university serves. And so we need to do everything we can to hold on to it.
You know, I've always felt that the university's commitment to truth as its goal puts it in trouble because it looks radical to people who want to be traditionalist, and it looks traditionalist to people who want to be radical, and so it satisfies nobody.
There is this. That's right. It is at once a humble and yet a completely audacious objective. The add-on, and I don't know exactly where to draw this line. The add-on, I want to say it's pursuing truth and also building of knowledge, that there are normative considerations that should be subject to all kinds of scrutiny and care, and that are the rightfully fall within the research portfolio of universities. Um, a narrow conception of truth might not accommodate those kinds of endeavors. I want to accommodate those kinds of endeavors. At the same time, I also want to rule out what I would call various versions of activist research, wherein the enterprise is put in the service of um, the realization of changes in the world that are preordained, that are with an eye towards rewarding some folks with whom you're politically allied and trying to push back against others who you see as political enemies. We can't get caught up in that if we're to be true to the compact that we have with our various publics, and um, that that crucially hinges upon our ability to maintain the public trust.
Humble audacity is a great slogan. We should put that on our business cards.
Good.
William, what are one or two challenges that you face right now to maintaining high intellectual standards in your field?
There are lots of things that we can point to. We gestured towards one earlier, the activist research you could see as being a kind of compromise of high standards, particularly when it comes to truth seeking and knowledge building. I want to point to something actually much more basic, though, which is that the pursuit of truth and the effort to build knowledge is routinely a social activity. We don't do it in isolation. Faculty, one at a time, spend a good deal of time alone. That's for sure true. But as we try to check our own biases, we try to identify the limits of our claims, as we try to push back against um, uh, ideas that we have that we're not sure about. I know in my own life, I routinely have depended upon others. And sometimes it's because they have different kinds of expertise than I have. Sometimes it's because they see the world radically different from the way that I do. And when this works really well, it isn't just that I consult with them on the hall, it's that their voices get lodged in my head, which has the effect of sharpening my own thinking. I like to think that it has the effect of sharpening my own thinking, um, demanding that I go farther than I already have. With a particular claim that I'm trying to develop. That's a social activity. And in any social activity, it's require trust and goodwill and good feelings about the people who are in our community. And it's integral. We're we're social creatures and we need to like the people. It's not that we need to agree with the people that we're spending time with, but that we need to like them and want to spend time with them, to sort of be drawn to them. Okay, great. Social activity with social dimensions. The institution of tenure requires that after a fixed period of time, having spent years and years with people, we make a hard call on whether or not person's contributions to knowledge and their efforts to advance the truth are up to the grade. And that's an incredibly difficult thing to ask colleagues to do. I mean, to see, much less enforce, fix and hard standards that have to do with academic excellence. To say somebody who you have spent 7 years with, learned a lot from, had dinners in their home and they and yours, and your lives, your professional and social lives have been entangled, to then say, and now I'm gonna cut you loose is just it's a very hard thing to do. And that carries over beyond tenure, I think, when it comes to places where we just our willingness to push each other, our willingness to call each other out in social settings, in settings that involve our students or involve people who are visiting our universities. It's critical that we do so that we uphold those standards, and yet it's really difficult to do.
Yeah, that community of learning that we really need to be there when the hard moments arrive, phrase so easily and is so difficult to maintain, not only because of the pressures it's under, but just because we need to find the time and energy to invest when we're not teaching or doing research.
I think that that's right. And that community of learning has these built-in tensions between, on the one hand, our shared desire to uphold high standards, and also we're social creatures. Um, and we, our lives, when that community of learning is really vibrant, become entangled. And not just our individual lives, but the lives of our families and our children. And so at various moments to then say, in the service of upholding standards of excellence, I'm going to now vote against tenure, or I'm going to now, in ways that may be awkward or uncomfortable, call you out in a public setting, which we need to do if we're upholding standards, can just be difficult. The act of doing it can be difficult
And you can't just build that community when you need it. It's got to be maintained over time so it's there
and
when you
nurtured
need
and
it. Yeah.
sustained. Exactly.
One of the tensions that we're dealing with, you mentioned earlier, and I want to circle back to it for my last question, and that's the mission of the university. One of the things the university tries to do is pursue knowledge for its own sake. And another thing that the university tries to do is make knowledge useful to people in the world. And there's a balance to that. Where do you think the university does well in that? And where do you think we could stand to improve?
So the way I think about this, that you're right, we have both objectives, knowledge for knowledge's sake, theory we care about, wholly divorced about what its immediate implications might be for the actual world, but then we also live in the actual world and we want to be engaged with it and speak to it and learn from it. How to hold both. To my mind, the way to think about this is that it's not a balancing act. What we need to do is build out infrastructure that supports and connects the people who, in their individual lives, may sit at the frontier, right at the edge between academia and the larger world, and those who sit with further within the confines of academia and maybe thinking about theory for theory's sake, knowledge for knowledge's sake. Um, how do you connect those people? How do you get it so that get to a place wherein the theorist, upon learning about what's happening at the edge, starts asking new questions or starts rethinking a set of suppositions that she might have had about a model that she's writing down, or or her thinking about the implications of a theory that she's developing. And likewise, how do we get to a place where the people who are at the edge of academia and the outside world are looking to disciplinary knowledge for guidance um, about how to orient themselves, about what questions to ask, about um, what communities to engage, to have a sense about what the stakes are in any particular exchange that she has with the people who sit outside of the academy. And and so we've universities are, I think we have both of those types of people. That's true among academics. And over the course of one's career, people gravitate, to the edges and then sometimes retreat and vice versa. What I don't think universities have done a particularly good job, though, is building out that infrastructure that stitches together those relationships. Um, to do theory really well, you can't ask those people to also write great op-eds. And to the people who are figuring out how to meaningfully communicate to the outside world, that's a skill unto itself. You can't ask them reasonably to invest deeply in theory and to do that deeply. But I think universities could do a much better job of, again, stitching together those relationships so that learning flows and we we see the relevance of what's happening either on the interior when we're at the edge, or when we're at the interior, the significance of what's happening at the edge for the kind of research that we're undertaking.
One of the big challenges is to make sure that it's flowing in both directions. Theorists love the idea that practitioners will benefit from theory, but theorists also need to learn from practitioners, see them as having another knowledge base that theorists not only can benefit from, but actually theory's not good theory if it's not learning from practice.
I completely agree. And I will say, we now are building this brand new school of government and policy at Johns Hopkins. We're building it from the ground up. And I'll name a person, Francesca Molinari, who's a theoretical econometrician, um, is joining our ranks. She's a first-rate theoretical econometrician who wants to be in an applied setting because she sees the relevance of a whole host of policy debates for informing the kinds of her understanding of the kinds of problems that she wants to solve that involve a lot of math and a lot of theory. And it isn't that her papers are going to be read out on the halls of Congress, but she sees the value of the people who are working in the halls of Congress for shaping the direction of her own research agenda. And I'll say, if we build the school in the way that I hope, the people who are sit between her and those who are right at the edge will be enriched by her deep theoretical insights about how you evaluate evidence and solve problems involving statistics.
Since you and I are both social scientists, I'll highlight the fact that your example shows that the social sciences raise this problem in an especially acute form, but also for that reason give us the opportunity to develop the model, perhaps in a really helpful way.
Yep, that sounds right to me.
Yet you and I can agree that the social sciences have something to contribute. William, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Greg.